as everyone joins in, hello.
There, I feel.
It's a great
Hello.
background. It's a lot of books.
I'm trying to look as smart as possible.
Yeah, I try to make a little set based on what I have in the house for each guest. Hi, Christy. Christy Ackert's here. So, as everybody joins in, there are little question marks at the bottom. You can actually type questions for me and Anthony, and we will try our best to answer them as we go along. But we can kind of just go for it if you're all right with that.
I'm fine. Oh yeah, absolutely.
All right. So this is currently Staying Safe with Ed because Ed Blankmeyer helped us name the show on the last one. Oh, Sean is with you. Hi, Sean Clancy. How are you? I'm Jesse from Business Lunch Productions, and we're live on Instagram every Monday and Thursday doing these at 4 p.m. We also record the episodes and release them so that everyone can catch them if they miss them a little later. And speaking of exciting guests, we're very excited to have you, Anthony McCarron. You have been writing about sports for like 30 years now, I think. Is that about right?
That is about right. Yeah, 1989. I started writing about sports.
Nice.
Yeah, it boggles the mind to even think about that.
You cover the Mets and the Yankees as an on-air personality for SNY right now, and you are a freelance writer. You've worked for the Miami Herald, Newsday, and you're on the staff of the Daily News for over 20 years. So why don't you? Yeah, love the beard. Agreed. We got the fans loving the beard right now.
Thank you very much. I'm not sure if the rest of the home roster loves the beard. I keep telling them that it's here to stay. Yeah, we'll see about that. But
Who
it's
ultimately makes
a
that
mark.
choice?
What's that?
I said, who ultimately makes that decision?
Oh, it's definitely not me. It'd be my wife on that. I will cede that to her for sure.
Okay. So why don't you introduce yourself in your words to everybody, and how would you describe Anthony McCarron?
Professionally, I think you hit it right on the head. Right now I'm a freelance writer, mostly about sports. I'm also an SNY contributor. They've been kind enough to put me on their shows over the years, and still doing so. And it's been great fun to have a foot in either camp there, writing and TV, which is an interesting new thing for me over the past few years. Other than that, I live in New York, and I have a wife and a daughter, and I'm a big baseball guy, as you might have figured out, and I like to read, as the background might show too.
Absolutely. And somebody, is that a tassel? Someone graduated at some point, which
That is my daughter's homemade tassel from, I think, preschool that
that's
we've saved
awesome.
for years. Yes.
Um, so before we jump into it, like I said, we let our guests name the show. And so there's this minor league company that helps rename minor league teams. So we've got the Bowling Green Hot Rods, the Clinton Lumber Kings, the Hickory Crawdads, and we are currently called Staying Safe with Ed from Ed Blankmeyer, the Cyclones' new manager. But it had a good run. Anthony, what should we call the show today?
Wow, that is a very tough question. How about assorted nonsense with Anthony? No, I'm kidding.
I like that. That's a good.
It might actually work depending on how this goes.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And funny enough, I saw on your Twitter bio you said Footloose and my grandfather used to have a column called Footloose and. So
Oh,
that
really?
resonated with me as well.
Yeah, that was just some clowning around by me, footloose and fancy freelance, just trying to have a little fun.
It's always good. So I think we'll go with nonsense, right? What's the exact title so we remember it?
Assorted nonsense with Anthony.
Assorted Nonsense with Anthony. All right. Welcome to Assorted Nonsense with Anthony. Let's jump in. And if everyone that's joining, if you have any questions, feel free to type them in at the bottom and we will certainly get to them as best we can. So you got your undergraduate degree at Davidson in North Carolina, then a master's in journalism at Northwestern in Evanston. And you clearly, obviously, knew you wanted to be in journalism, but what was your original plan and how has that kind of played out versus where you are today?
Well, to be honest, I always had in my mind to be a baseball writer. I mean, back when even I was a little kid, falling in love with the game, devouring everything that I could about baseball, reading everything. You know, I used to have, I grew up, I was born in New York, but I grew up part of my life in Florida. And I remember in our garage there, I had stacks and stacks of the Sporting News and Baseball Digest
It's awesome.
and Smiths and all the, you know, every yearbook and all that sort of thing. And I just, you know, that's what I did with my time. And I, you know, not only did I know the players and revere the players, but I remember the bylines from those days. And, you know, when I first started writing about baseball, I mean, we're really going to nerd out here on this kind of thing, but I remember like the feeling of meeting people whose names I had read in the Sporting News and being like, wow, you know, that's the guy that covered the A's for all
That's
those
how I
years.
feel about you.
But it's great. I mean, it was great fun. So I always, being a baseball writer and being a baseball beat writer was always something that I had in mind as a career. You know, I wanted to be around sports in some way. And my, as I like to call it, my cup of coffee in college baseball pretty much proved that it was not going to be as a player. And that's fine because there are so many other ways to immerse yourself in the game and the sport and the business. And, you know, so it's been a wonderful ride all these years. And, you know, you go to the ballpark, you really never have a bad day if that's your
Totally.
office. You may not want to go on this day or that day. And, you know, I mean, it does have it always has its jobby parts like any other job. But if you really enjoy that part of it, I mean, that's something special.
100%. Where it was at Davidson that you played baseball?
That's at Davidson where I attempted to play baseball.
Okay.
I would like to point out that I was 1 for 4 in fall ball.
That's not bad.
Impressive, but it was clear to me that you know, that I had no shot. There was a guy on the team there, and I'll never forget him. He works in baseball now, Bill Massey. He was a freshman at Davidson the same time I was a freshman. He later on went on to Wake Forest and played for years in the Yankee system. But I mean, this guy was like, he was a force of nature at 17, 18. He was the best baseball player I'd ever seen, I'd ever played with or against. And those were the kind of guys that it was going to take. You know, you had to be like
Yeah.
that to be that good to go far in playing it.
Well, and it's good that you had that sort of foresight to know that it was time to pivot.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. My grades were telling me it was time to pivot too.
There you
So
go. Christy Ackert says, "What about the man crush on Mike Messina?"
oh well, I mean, look, I had a good relationship with Mike Mussina when he was on the Yankees. I thoroughly enjoyed covering him. He was different than most baseball players. I know that you know, sort of in the media, he was, you know, I think he's a really smart guy and he's a nice guy. And I think when he first got to New York, he was a little uneasy about being here and all the
Sure.
attention. And, you know, I mean, that's a lot, believe me, that's a lot for everybody when you got, you know, all these people who cover the team every single day. They all want their own thing. They're all going hard for stories and, you know, everything is a big deal. It takes a little while to get used to. And I think there are some media members that might have held it against Mike his entire career in New York because he wasn't instantly, you know, nice and
Right.
genuine, genuflecting in front of them. And you know, he was a challenging interview, especially at first. He always wanted you to pay a little toll of lip a little bit before. Most of the time, it was kidding, you know, but it was totally worth going through it to get to the good stuff because he had a great mind, a great baseball mind, and he was a great player.
Absolutely. So we were on the, and we'll try and pepper in the audience questions. So please keep sending them in if you have them. We were on the topic of Davidson, and then you went to Northwestern. So one from each, intriguing sports stories. So I saw you wrote something somewhat recently about what would have been for the Knicks with Steph Curry. But at Davidson, can you tell me, you weren't there, but what was it like as an alum in 2008 as Steph Curry led that Elite Eight run and a member of the media?
Oh, it was sensational. I mean, you know, everybody, my friends and I from college, phones were just blowing up like crazy. We were hanging on every game and every moment, and it was so remarkable to watch a guy who was so talented, who could do so many incredible things on the court. Because you know, we were devoted Davidson fans when we were there, and you know, they had good players. I mean, Reggie Rucker, the old NFL wide receiver, his son was the point guard when I was in at Davidson, and he was a terrific player. Went on to play for years in Australia. But I mean, Steph Curry was like a comet.
Yeah.
going across the Davidson sky. And so to watch this was so amazing. And I remember my daughter was, probably 3 or 4 at the time, and she was running around the apartment yelling, "Go Davidson!" Because I was screaming at the TV like a maniac, and thoroughly immersed and invested again, and just agog that like LeBron showed up to watch Curry play. And just the run in that tournament, I mean, it put Davidson on the map in so many different ways. Apart from the idea, it's famous for being a really good school, and it's famous because it has a laundry service for students.
Yeah.
And a lot of people who love to take pot shots at Davidson people because they have enjoyed the benefits of said laundry service. And but now Curry opened it up to a whole new audience, which was amazing.
He also has like the youngest face. He'll be 90 years old and he'll still look like he's 25.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yes, another thing to admire the guy for.
Exactly. And then at Northwestern, so in 2015, the football team went about starting a union and tried to fight for player compensation for college athletes, which is such a timely issue still. And it plays out in all sports. So football and basketball, we've seen a lot with that. But even in baseball, the Braves picked Carter Stewart a couple of years ago. And instead of signing, I think he's a Boris client, he went to Japan for guaranteed money. So just from that perspective, what implications did that Northwestern sports story have on sports?
Well, to me, it just, I mean, I applaud them for having the guts to do that and attempt that because, and it really speaks to the issue that, college players in these giant revenue sports really need to be paid. They are generating incredible amounts of money for the universities, and, the scholarship is valuable. It's incredible. Everyone should go to college, or everyone who wants to should go to college. But there's more to their value than the price of the scholarship and what they get out of that. And I think it's only fair that they get paid as well. And I think that them taking a step toward shouting out, "Hey, look at us. This is something that we need to talk about." I think that that's something to be applauded.
Totally. We have another audience question. I'll put it up here from Gonzo. Did you ever interview Manny Ramirez?
You know what? I never had a one-on-one interview with Manny Ramirez. I was at Red Sox camp a couple times where I attempted to talk to Manny Ramirez, and he was not interested in talking. I think that was not a me thing. I think that was a Manny the media thing. But whatever happened, however it went down, it never really happened. I was around him, I think, in some group things, maybe some post games or that sort of stuff, but nothing significant. I do remember I came along in New York after his high school career in New York, and
Right.
I remember that people were still basically just their jaws were still on the floor from what he did as a prep player in New York City.
Especially the audience of our show here. Anyone that's on here remembers that pretty well.
Yes, I mean, what an immense talent and an incredible high school baseball player.
So you started out as a writer, and then over time you made your way onto TV. Did you ever see yourself being a television personality when you were getting into this?
No, to be honest, in fact, my first forays on TV, I mean, the only thing I can remember, they're like a blur of nervousness, and the thing I can put my finger on from them, I think it was talking about high school basketball on MSG with Mike Quick on TV, and just being starstruck and amazed that people could do it for a living. And I'm still amazed, to be honest, at the talented folks who are out there. To me, it's I've been lucky enough to have a few cracks at it with the folks at SNY, and it's really fun. I mean, it's talking about sports and baseball, which we love, and
Right.
everyone's passionate, and everybody's got an opinion, and everybody is thinking critically about the game, and I love that sort of stuff. One of the things we love about sports is just gabbing back and forth about it. And,
Totally.
I'm doing it on TV. People are watching, and somebody's giving me some money for it. So wow, this is amazing.
It's the dream come true.
Yeah.
And social media too. So social media has kind of become this huge part of journalism, and we have students that'll watch. But what's that like? Before I get into the rest of the thought on social media.
Social media, it's a great tool to sort of put yourself out there. And it has really, I think over my career, obviously it's exploded to a point where, I think that 1989, Anthony McCarron would have no idea what was coming, and
Totally.
2020, Anthony McCarron still has no idea sometimes how to use it, for my own career or whatever. But there
Yeah.
are people who are really, really good at it and have really used it. A little tweet here, a little, snark here, and all of a sudden it's, helped their career in an amazing way that you could never have planned. I mean, I do like some interaction. I shut it down when it becomes like I'm not on Twitter to, or Instagram to fight. Like
Right.
I'm in that. That's, there's enough of that sort of thing in the world. But I do love, Twitter jokes and observations and analysis and that sort of stuff on social media. I'm all in for. But it's kind of a weird universe sometimes.
And constantly evolving too, which is
Yes.
like you got to be able to keep up. And I want to thank you personally and your daughter. She helped you set up an Instagram just to do the show, so we are very
Yes.
grateful for that.
When you said evolving, I said, yeah, I'm on Instagram today.
And you weren't a week ago. Yeah, that's awesome. So on your photo on Twitter, it's a Chiron from SNY, or yeah, from SNY, and it said
Oh no,
Judy's
it's actually NBC.
NBC. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it says Judy's husband on it under your name, referencing Judy Batista, your wife, who works
Yes.
for NFL.com. What's it like having sports media as such an integral part of your life?
Well, the reason that thing exists is because Judy and I went on Bruce Beck's show together,
Got
which
it.
was kind of a highlight for us. We've done it a couple of times. She's an expert on the NFL, and so he has us come on. We've done it twice, I think, and I've come on to talk about baseball. She comes on to talk about football, and then we get the two of us together on there, and so that's what that came from. I just love that they put Judy's husband underneath there. I thought that was phenomenal. But it's been, sports and sports media is an everyday part of our lives. And it's crazy sometimes. As I used to say about when I was on a baseball beat, I used to say, my wife is a sports writer. So she has done a baseball beat. She knows what this is all about, and it's still hard to understand the job sometimes. How crazy it could be, and so that's what we're kind of looking at it. Our daughter has grown up, with us in the other room on the phone with this general manager or this agent or whatever, and and she's big into sports these days, particularly baseball and football and tennis. And so she's learned to look critically at these things. And so sometimes I hear her muttering at the TV, when there's a game on, when we're having games. So it's crazy. One story that I would love to tell about, how the existence can be so crazy is in 2006, the Daily News sent me to Scottsdale, Arizona, to cover the inaugural WBC, the World Baseball Classic, which was it was a great assignment because it was this interesting new thing with all these big names in it. And Judy's season was over, because it was late February, early March at this point. And our daughter was a little over a year old, so we all went out and decamped to Arizona. I'm going to the workouts and the games and stuff, and Judy's mostly getting to relax. Well, but then she worked at the New York Times at the time, and she was covering the NFL. Then a big labor story broke in the league, and there was this epic night where we were staying at the Residence Inn in Scottsdale, and our my daughter and I were asleep in one room, and Judy was in the bathroom with the door closed, with the top to the toilet down, sitting on the toilet, talking to the head of the Players Association for the NFL, as like these things are developing minute by minute. And she's trying not to wake up the barely a year old little girl in the other room, and the baseball writer who's probably got to go to some practice in the morning too, and she's furiously typing away and all this stuff.
Amazing.
It's nuts. It's crazy. I mean, those are the ones that stick out. That's not the day. Every day is not like that, or I don't know what would happen. But it can be pretty amazing.
Is there one that went the other way where you got to go to something that she was covering and hang around, and that was a cool experience?
I went to the Super Bowl a couple times actually. I got a ticket to this to the big game, and so I went out there for the festivities. But I didn't go to like the the media day or anything like that. But just kind of like absorbing the. One of them was in New Orleans when the Patriots won their Tom Brady won their first Super Bowl, that first Super Bowl that they in their big run. But just being around the city and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, there's always that was kind of like a busman's holiday for me. I went out there and she's doing her thing and I'm wandering around New Orleans.
So that's actually an interesting question because I used to work doing StatCast, so I like got the behind the scenes or you do this stuff. What's it like when you actually then get thrown back into just being a fan? What was that experience like for you?
Oh, it was great because I mean, everybody was walking around in New Orleans in that particular time. So you're looking at there's all these NFL stars that you recognize walking down the street, that you see and all this stuff. And I'm sitting in the stands, watching the game, and it was great fun. I mean, sometimes when you're a sports writer, you forget how much fun it is to just go
Yeah.
and see the game, and I'm thinking, Adam Vinatieri's lining up for a game-winning field goal, and I'm like, is he going to make it? Instead of like, oh my God, what do I do with my story if he makes it? Or, how is this going to change what I'm writing about or whatever. So it's refreshing, that kind of thing.
Totally. So let's talk about your relationship with Scouts. So how do they inform a lot of the stuff that you're writing, tweeting, covering, or your understanding of the game?
Well, I mean, look, Jesse, I sit at the feet of scouts, and I mean, those guys are an incredible resource for anybody who covers the game. I've learned so much from interacting with them about baseball, about the business of baseball, the way information is transferred from one part of a baseball operations team to another, and how it's then employed in the way that the club acts on players or whatever. And I mean, not just, it's not, so it's with scouts, it's not just he doesn't go to his left very well, or, this guy, you can't get the inside fastball past him because he's too quick. It's not just those incredible observations from their keen eyes. It's so much more. And they really fill in the sort of gaps, in your knowledge, that you don't even know you have yet. The richness and the detail. And I've always owed a great debt to every scout who's ever helped me along the line, and they're wonderful and generous with their time. And I mean, I can't say thank you enough to them. I mean, Joe DiCarlo, who was a Giants scout for a long time, taught me an immense amount about baseball early in my career, when I was covering the Yankees, and he was for the Daily News, and he was on the Yankees a bunch. And I mean, he used to help me a great deal. He's one of the guys I've learned the most from. I learned the most from in the game. And a quick story about him. I used to, Mariano Rivera, obviously the incredible closer. We at the Daily News, we had a sports editor who was attuned to every one of Mariano's failures. So if he gave up a loud foul, this guy was like, we need a big feature story on why Mariano's losing it. If he blew a save, if he blew two saves in a week, oh my goodness, then that was cause for this thing. So I would always call Joe during those times and say, what's wrong with Mo? And he would laugh and laugh and laugh, because we're talking about one of the greatest pitchers who ever,
Right.
walked atop a mound. And we always had a great time. He'd see me and he'd say, "What's wrong with Mo?" I mean, it was great.
Nothing
But along,
ever.
what's that?
Nothing ever.
Yeah, right. Sometimes someone's going to get a hit off the guy. Yeah, it's
Right.
baseball. But it was, and it's just been a pleasure dealing with scouts over the years, and they've been great.
So how do you think you kind of cover a little bit of everything, but you're Mets Yankees. So how do you think the hiatus is going to affect both of those teams? And, where will they be if we do come back?
Well, it's a great question. And this is going to be, I think, the key to this season, whatever becomes of this season in baseball, however many games they get in, however it goes, I think whatever team is best positioned and positions themselves the best, if that makes any sense, pitching wise, is going to, I mean, pitching has an enormous impact on the game as it is, obviously.
Right.
But this year, getting your pitchers ready and keeping them healthy for any kind of abbreviated season, if it comes to that, is going to have an enormous impact. So for the Mets and the Yankees, that's going to be, to me, the big challenge, is getting those guys ramped up again, ready, and then healthy going forward. And because this is weird, it's unprecedented. We've never done it this way before.
Yeah.
How do you react? And, for the Yankees, I mean, look, they're going to have a lot of healing time for a lot of injured players. I mean, last year we such a big deal about all their injuries, unprecedented amount of injuries, records falling all over the place for injured list numbers for them. And we didn't think it could happen, like law of averages wise, and all the changes they made to address it. And yet their spring training was a lot about injuries. And, so this pause may give those guys a chance to heal and get back to where they could be. So maybe some of their players will have more of an impact on the season than maybe we thought they might, before all of this happened. And the same for the Mets in terms of Yoenis Cespedes.
Yeah.
Is that going to is he going to be a factor or an even bigger factor now? It's going to be fascinating to see.
We've heard a lot about his ranch on this show from various people. Have you been to the ranch? Did you get that experience with?
Oh, no, I have not been to the ranch.
Okay.
Must be some joint.
So we were talking about injuries. That's interesting because the Dodgers kind of a few years ago started using that as like another way to gain an advantage, right? By resting pitchers. Obviously, it doesn't apply as much, but what are your thoughts on that and just finding all these little ways to gain the edge in the game?
It's what baseball is all about. Ever since, they measured the bases, everybody has taken each rule and tried to diagram it, how they can break it down and make, that one sliver of advantage for themselves. And I think it's smart. And I think that, everyone in baseball is paying so much more attention to every single thing about baseball, even more so than they did 15, 20 years ago. Beyond that, they're looking every day. There's departments that exist now that nobody even thought of,
right.
What was that before? And, so I think that, as soon as a rule comes in, someone's going to try to break it down. And, that's obviously we've talked a whole lot over the past months about the Astros sign stealing scandal. I mean, that's obviously going way too far, but I mean, people have been stealing signs from second base, in contact of the game, forever.
Gary Perrin says the ranch is insane, by the way, just to reinforce the point.
Gary, you've been to the ranch.
Gary, I guess, has been to the ranch. Yes, we've had a couple people. And I read a really awesome story about Anthony Fauci and how he had been to the ranch and got Yoenis to pose. That was so cool to read. Do you have any stories about him?
I just know that he was as genuine a guy as you would ever meet. All those things that were put out on social media about him, all the interviews that were given about him, every single one of them was true. And that's, usually when something like this happens, a tragedy like this, you hear about a person and you're, people say things and, they're true, but like this was like people probably didn't even go far enough. I mean, this was a guy who, like, as soon as you were around him, you felt like he was, the cousin that you grew up with. And it was just, everybody was, he talked to everybody. He was kind to everybody. I worked at the Daily News and he worked at the Post. That doesn't always happen with those two papers.
Right.
And, I mean, I had dinners with him on the road and, in groups that were just a gas where he would make everybody laugh and we would have conversation. I mean, he was a tremendous, tremendous guy. It's a huge loss.
And for anybody that has questions, we appreciate that you're all jumping in. This is great and giving us some more ammunition. Feel free to keep typing your questions in and we'll keep getting to them. What is the best proposal you've seen so far for coming back and what that could look like?
I'm not sure I know the answer to that because there's so much that we don't know so far. I think the one thing that stands out to me about this whole thing is that I think we're going to have to get behind the idea that fans may not be able to watch for a while live. And I think we got to be okay with that. And I don't think that it necessarily is an awful thing if the games can start up again and everybody's safe. That should obviously be paramount. But whatever the infectious disease experts say, is the best plan is the one I'm behind.
Totally. It's a great answer. Okay, so rapid fire now. I'm just going to give you some things. You tell me the first thing that comes to your mind.
Okay.
Favorite player growing up?
Tom Seaver.
Chocolate or gummy candies?
Oh, chocolate.
Favorite ballpark and a story if you have one.
Favorite ballpark. I mean, Shea was the first one I ever went to. It's the one that I fell in love with baseball, dreaming about going to. I'll tell you my quick Shea story. I mean, it's more about my dad and just being fans than anything else. But I think I was about 7 at the time, and we were at a game. I can't even remember who they were playing. But my dad and I were clowning around, and Brock Pemberton, a guy who had a brief career with the Mets, comes up to pinch hit, and the PA announces, hitting for the Mets, Brock Pemberton, and my dad just went, "Yay, Brock Pemberton!" And I remember laughing. And we talked about that for years
It's an
and years.
amazing baseball name.
Brock Pemberton, yeah, that's fantastic, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh man.
I always said that I would love it if the Mets had an old timers day every year, because I'd love to see what like Brock Pemberton
Was up
looked
to.
like.
Yeah.
What happened after, as a 70-year-old guy or whatever.
You know that everyone that's watching is either Googling it now or going to Google it when we're done, see if we can find him. Favorite fruit?
Ooh, blueberries.
Nice. Me too. And you're not the first one to
Superfood.
say that. That seems like a common theme.
Superfood right there.
Spirit
Right.
animal.
Oh, spirit animal. Tiger.
Nice.
My wife is laughing in the background.
Have you seen Tiger Man or any of
No,
his?
I have not. Is it worth watching?
Everyone seems to think it's pretty great. I haven't gotten around to it yet, but it's like a cultural phenomenon.
I've been
Or
concentrating
Tiger
on
King, I
Ozark.
guess it's called.
Right, Tiger. Yeah.
um, okay, you did well with that stuff. So now we'll get back to some easier things. So this has been a tough time for everybody, and we've kind of been talking about the pandemic with all of our guests in one way or another. Were you in Florida when this all started? Did you get some time there? And then what was the transition like, if you did?
I was not down there. No, I was always working from up here only, so I did not experience that, which I know a lot of other journalists obviously went through, being down there and having everything that occurred, and coming back. Do you stay down there and cover the team? What do you do? How do you handle it? All that stuff. Didn't have to experience it.
My friend Joe Dawson says, Tiger Man, come on, Jesse, it's Tiger King. In fairness, I have a friend making a movie on Antoine Yates called Tiger Man right now. Also, this was the guy who had in the projects, I think it was in the Bronx, maybe 20 years ago, had the tiger in his apartment, and the police had to come remove the tiger. So I always
Oh,
get confused. Yeah.
that's a tabloid feast right there. That kind of story.
Yes, it is. um, so, what has been your experience with coming up with stories during this time? Obviously, during the pandemic, it's been different.
Yes, I mean a lot of phone calls, obviously. Uh, Historical pieces. I'm trying to come up with some of those kinds of ideas. I'll have one later this week on SNY's website that Met fans will probably appreciate and enjoy. But that's been the kind of thing that it's been up to. Uh, I've had some work, some non-journalism work that I'm doing as well, actually, that has to do with baseball. That it's keeping me busy a lot of the time to kind of keep my sanity together as I stay inside.
And then, so what are some of the best things that have happened to you or that you've seen since this all started to pull out the, did you see Some Good News, the John Krasinski show?
I have. I haven't seen I saw the first 2 episodes, but I didn't see the one where they go. I think they go to Fenway Park or something, or
That
somebody
was
goes to.
episode 3, and then he just did a prom. So
Oh,
that I'm crying every single time I watch that show. I'm crying at least once. I mean, it's unbelievable. But
that's
that's,
genius.
yeah, to see the good in the world. So what are some good things that you've seen?
Well, I mean, the one thing that in Manhattan, and I know this is going on every in a lot of other places as well, but every night at 7 o'clock, people go to their windows here and clap and have no get noisemakers and yell and scream to honor all the healthcare workers who are fighting the virus, on the front lines, as they say, every night. And I love that kind of community spirit. I can't say that I know anybody who lives on my block, in the other buildings or anything like that, but to have people sort of come together in that fashion, um, you know, that's like that's like a feel good, nice thing. I mean, there's been some good stuff on the internet, like the John Krasinski thing that you mentioned is a prime example, that show that it's not, the world is not all bad. It's, this is a difficult time, obviously, but I mean, we should sort of cling to our, the basic goodness of humanity as well.
100%. If you were a team owner right now, or a general manager, if baseball comes back, would you prioritize this year? Do you think that you would invest the same type of resources? Or from the commissioner's perspective, are you going to try and do something that affects everyone equally, that kind of levels the playing field? Have you heard anything about any of that stuff?
If I'm a team owner, I would go for it this year, to be honest with you, because if there's an abbreviated season, there's you could get a hot streak could change a lot of things, and then if you get into the playoffs, as we know, if a team gets hot, they can surprise a lot of things too. So that's how I would tilt my resources. I mean, just because if it ends up being an abbreviated season, and I don't see how any other, I don't really see a way where it's not going to be, that doesn't make it any less of a season, so to speak. In 20
Right.
years, talk about who won the World Series. If it comes to that, they'll, I mean, I can't even remember. Let's look at the NFL strike when, or the work stoppage in '82, I think it was, or '80, whenever that was, and whoever won I can't even remember who won the Super Bowl that year. That's how sort of ingrained it is in Super Bowl lore. You know what I mean? It's
Right.
not like everybody's sit there and say, "Oh, well, they only played 80 games that year. That World Series doesn't mean anything." It's still the World Series.
100%. Yeah, no, that's really fair. And do you think that that's something they're considering? Is how do we ensure that this is going to be fair for everybody?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they are running through every single scenario that they can possibly come up with, and to see how it works. And that all the owners are going to put their 2 cents, 4 cents, 6 cents, 8 cents, 10 cents out it, and constantly push their own team's agenda the way they see it fit, and the way they see things going for their club and what would help their club the best. Yeah, I mean, they've got to consider everything at this point, because we're it sounds like, for all the talk, I mean, we don't know when things can start up again in the way that we're used to them being.
What have you been watching? What kind of sports, if any, content, or what have you been paying attention to in the lack of regular stuff that you'd be watching right now?
Well, sports wise, I rewatched the Giants' first Super Bowl victory. That was the first one I watched. I've watched a lot of baseball highlights on my computer, and I watched the Jordan Bulls Last
Did you?
Dance Thursday night, which was mind blowing how good
Yeah.
it was. If you didn't watch last night, everybody catch up, and then, like me, you'll be just waiting for next Sunday for the next two episodes. It was fantastic, and it was a great reminder of an incredible time and an incredible player, and such access and frankness from those guys.
Did you see OJ Made in America? I think that was sort of like the thing that set the stage for this type of, because that was the first one ESPN did.
Oh, I haven't seen that. Well, this is a good time to
It's
go
a
and
great
binge it.
time, yeah. And it's like it won the Academy Award for Best Documentary, and it's like a 10-part series. And then the Academy Awards changed their qualifiers. You can no longer make a long episodic series like that and qualify, but it's amazing. Yeah, it's so good. So, you got time.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've been binging Ozark
Nice.
as well on Netflix, which is fantastic and amazing, and there's a lot going on there.
All right, so the next thing we do is baseball cards. So I'm going to show you some cards, and if you have stories or just what you remember about the players. CC Sabathia is the first one.
Oh, see, I really enjoyed covering CC. In fact, the other day on Twitter, I put up a picture somebody took It was at the Yankees spring training. It was in Tampa at their minor league complex. It was like a few days before camp started one year, and CC was talking to a bunch of us, and I was in the picture, and somebody challenged me to put up a picture of me at work, and that's the one I put up there. And it's all of us. Like CC must have cracked a joke because everybody in the picture is laughing, and it was like the good feelings of pre-spring training when everybody is in a great mood. I really enjoyed watching him pitch and covering him. And you think back to '09, the incredible seismic impact he had on that team, and coming in there as a big signing, and then delivering on an enormous contract. I mean, the early part of CC's contract, and obviously the last part of it, is a blueprint on for pitchers who want to become beloved in their new hometowns, their new adopted hometowns, as a big money pitcher.
100%. Hall of Famer in your mind?
I think he will get into the Hall of Fame. I think I haven't done a hard comparison of him in the past. I did when he retired, and I was leaning yes. That sort of stuff to me. I know some people don't understand this or don't agree with this, but candidacies evolve over time, and so I will be looking at him again. But I would say at this current time, yeah, for me.
It's interesting. We may have to touch on that when we're done with baseball cards. Chase Headley.
Wonderful guy. He was one of those guys that the Yankees lusted after for a long time. And I remember he had that enormous year in San Diego, and then he never quite got to that incredible level again, which was unfortunate. But he was a pro who hustled every day, and he was always a delightful interview in the clubhouse as well. I remember having it was a walk-off homer off of Aroldis Chapman when Chapman was on the Reds, and when the Yankees got Chapman, I remember doing a story asking him, what's it like to face 105 miles an hour, and he was just great about he really got the idea of people want to read that sort of stuff, like what is it like? We don't know what it's like 105 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And he was great at sort of taking you to the field, and he was good enough description wise to get the feeling.
Okay, next one. This is an interesting one. I try and find him. So this is David Cone and Jackie Gleason.
Wow, and why does that card exist?
We'll find out. So this one says, David didn't learn how to throw his curve or split finger pitch from watching his idol, but perhaps the NL's reigning strikeout king will walk into the clubhouse following an important victory someday and shout how sweet it is. I guess Jackie Gleason was his idol. He's now on TV, right? So I guess it kind of makes sense.
Hilarious. Well, Cone, Cone, I covered my first year on the Yankee beat was 2000, which was Cone's terrible year for Cone, obviously. He was one of the worst. I hate even saying this now, but he was, one of the worst pitchers in baseball that year. And I know he was very frustrated by it at the time, but he was an incredible treat to cover because he was always so insightful and frank. And he liked talking to the writers, which isn't always the case. But he enhanced any story that you asked him about. And you get to see that now with him on the Yes Network. He's a genius announcer and analyst on there, and it's a treat to listen to him. You learn something from him off of every broadcast, and that's remarkable.
Two more. We got Daniel Murphy.
Daniel Murphy. I still remember that postseason run that he had, and I remember that look, he was a good hitter, but I also felt like he. I don't know. He was good, but he wasn't the guy. He wasn't the hitter that he was during that incredible run. And I think that the Mets, every Met fan that went nuts over the Mets not re-signing him after that season,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they would have done it either if it were their money. You know what I mean? And then of course it turned out that he had made a leap and became something really good when he signed with the Nationals. MVP candidate, all that sort of time. I remember all the hand wringing being over this guy. Like I didn't get it. It was a tremendous postseason run, but it wasn't like, was he really that guy? It turned out for a little while afterward he was.
And then the last one we have, Mike Piazza on the Dodgers.
Oh, Mike Piazza. I mean, the thing that I love about this guy was, and you talk to other players about him, uh, the ball sounded different when he hit it and when he got it good. I mean, it was like a thunderclap. And those games, between the Mets, when he was on the Mets, those games between the Mets and the Yankees, um, that was to me the pinnacle of the Subway Series. Because the Mets had this incredible superstar that could measure up to anybody in pinstripes, and he rose to the occasion in those games as well. I mean, he's always been a favorite of mine. I talked to him a month or so ago for a story I was working on, and it's a treat to get to talk to him because he's like a mellow, cool guy, and he obviously loved his career and his time in the game, and it's always been a pleasure to deal with him.
We tried twice now. We've had a guest. So the stats on the card. How many home runs in the last year I'm looking at it do you think Piazza hit? This is a 1994 card. So how many home runs with the Dodgers in 93?
In 93,
Yep.
I think he hit 33.
Let's see. He hit 35. Great guess.
Ooh.
Wow. 318, 35 home runs, and 112 RBIs. Not a bad year. Not a
Yeah,
bad year at all.
those Dodger years were insane, weren't they?
Yeah. And then he was a Marlin for what, 5 days, I think?
Right. I think he played 5 games with them. I think he hit a triple, weirdly.
Yes, he did. Yeah, that's right. So we had two people, baseball options. Nice to be on with you, gentlemen. Say hello to Dan Palumbo of the Phillies. Shout out to ex-teammate Hojo he roomed together with in 1979. And then someone said, oh, Joe, Chase Headley just made me remember Yangervis Solarte. Briefly on the Yankees, then flamed out in San Diego. There you go.
Yo, I remember him too.
What do you remember about Yangervis Solarte?
We were very interested in his first name, and then he had like I think he had like a little run where he was hitting a bunch, and then he actually, I mean, didn't he stick around for a little bit too?
He did, yeah. He was with the Blue Jays. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was part of a trade somewhat recently, I think.
Good for him.
Good for Ian Jervis, yeah. So you brought up something while we were doing the cards about being a Hall of Fame voter that I think is definitely interesting to the people watching. What is it like to have that power, so to speak? And then you said it evolves over time. So explain that, because that's really cool too.
Well, it's a treat to be able to vote for the Hall of Fame. I cherish it. I realize that annually it sparks a lot of debate, which I generally think is a good thing because I love people talking about baseball, and they've got their own opinion. And look, I'm a big Hall guy, and I know that with some people that's not very popular. They think that Walter Johnson, Tom Seaver, and Babe Ruth should be the only people in the Hall of Fame, or whatever. I'm exaggerating, obviously, but I love the idea that we can look at a guy like Edgar Martinez and find him worthy of enshrinement in Cooperstown because he was the best at what he did in the game, and I don't blame Edgar in this instance for not playing in the field, because if there were no DH and Edgar Martinez had to play in the field somewhere, he would have played in the field because he could hit.
Right.
And so I love the fact that he's recognized. I love the fact that relievers are getting a little more burn in it as well, because they have become a big part of the game. And if you're told that you're a relief pitcher, what are you going to do? You excel at that role and then see where things fall. So it's fascinating every year because, I mean, talk about lighting up social media. You put your Hall of Fame ballot out there.
Yeah.
If they don't agree with you, forget about it. But the thing what I meant about a guy's candidacy evolving is because, we've had the benefit of an information revolution in baseball and new ways to measure eras and new ways to measure players against each other, against their peers, against the guys who played before them. And I think it's all interesting, and I think it's all dialogue. There are some people who reject the idea, that this newfangled stat exists, And I just think that that's so wrong. Somebody's talking about baseball. You like baseball. Let's, hey, what about that? Let's talk about it. So, Bert Blyleven is a great example of a guy whose candidacy evolved over the years because we maybe knew more about baseball because of some of the work that the sabermetricians did. And we could look at Bert Blyleven, who was, I remember his career. I mean, the guy threw 60 shutouts in his career. I mean, that's pretty amazing. He's got the strikeout numbers. Like, so that's what I mean by evolving is that, I mean, as for CC, like, does pitching change in such a way that we never even see guys who threw the amount of innings that he did, which makes it, you know, special or more special, the amount of innings and the amount of starts and that kind of stuff that he was able to accomplish in his career. I don't know. That's why I love the idea that these guys, their careers get to marinate a little bit over time, and you get to think about them differently with new stuff that comes up and new opinions and new numbers even.
I remember we were interviewing Buck Showalter at one point, and he was saying that as far as the argument of how do you compare players today, you can't. The players today are the best players that have ever been. They're playing a new game.
Yeah.
They're stronger. He's like, no matter when you are, whoever's playing now they're going to beat the other guys. It's just.
Right. Well, that was the great thing. I think it was last year before he signed with the Yankees. Didn't Adam Ottavino, New York guy, bring up the idea of, that he would just crush Babe Ruth if he faced him right now? And I mean, to hear that, it sounds preposterous, right? But I mean, these are the best players who ever played, right? They're all bigger than everybody who played back then. They're all stronger. They're all trained differently, more intelligently. So I just think that sort of stuff is fascinating. He got crushed for saying it, but what if he was right?
Right. No, exactly. And I think you were talking about bullpens before too. The Mets and the Yankees are both kind of set up, at least on paper, to really succeed with what's going on. The Mets adopted a little bit of that Dodgers mentality with sign too many starting pitchers because you can never have enough, and it already played out.
Yeah, and I'm okay with when they did that. I was okay with it because they didn't have enough depth. They had no depth in the minors in case of injury. And, injuries are inevitable with pitchers, as we've learned, unfortunately. So you have to have somebody who can step in. So even if they did, even if Michael Wacha, before the Syndergaard injury was going to be in the bullpen, so what? I mean, he's
right.
He's one step away from being in the rotation if somebody gets hurt.
100%. So is there anything else? Because I have my final question. Are there other topics that you've been thinking about while you've been home or ruminating on that you think people might find interesting before I get to it?
Let's see. I mean, I'm just like everybody. I'm like, I'm champing at the bit for baseball to come back. I really am, and it's it's not easy without it. We're right now we're expecting to be immersed and having all these debates that we were just talking about this guy. Why'd they bring this guy in, or whatever. And I can't wait till those days till that's back.
100%. So. On that note, what does baseball mean to you, Anthony McCarron?
Well, I mean, it's been a lifelong passion for me. I mean, ever since I was exposed to it as a little kid, I wanted to play it, read about it, watch it, write about it. So it's been a pleasure. It's been a career of sorts. It's been a pastime. I mean, it's going to be something that is a major part of my life, my entire life.
You get a bonus question. We have a couple minutes left if anybody has questions, but this is an awesome question. Sean Clancy says, what's going to be in the McCarron burger at Foley's? It's a high honor.
I could crush some McCarron burgers, as Sean well knows. That's a very good question here. Let's see. Bacon is probably going to have to be involved. Okay. I know that's not very original, but bacon is probably going to have to be involved somewhere.
All right, maybe it's a bacon. I've seen there are places. I watch a lot of Food Network. There are places that make burgers like out of bacon. Maybe it's
really?
Just throw the whole thing for a loop and do that.
Whoa, who knew such a thing existed?
I have more time now. Watching way too much Guy Fieri. So, and we got another, my hot take is cancel the season. Everyone gets Tommy John's and then we all come back fresh and healthy for 2021. Oh man.
Well, there is precedent for voluntary Tommy Johns, and some, with some people who think that that's going to make their kid the next, flame throwing MLB superstar.
Absolutely. Um, yeah, no, you're totally right. This was a lot of fun. I got nothing else. You ran through the questions. You had something for all the players. This was great. I love this.
Oh, it was great. I mean, thank you so much for having me. This was a blast. I mean, it feels so good to talk about baseball again. I mean, it's a great feeling.
100%. And welcome to Instagram. Um,
Now, what is my Instagram future going to be after this? I don't know if I can top it.
well, so Christy Ackert, after the show, we were talking about how I saw she likes birds, and I also have a lot of fun taking when we're filming and stuff, getting birds. So now we've just been posting bird pictures back and forth for like a week or two now.
Well, that I can get behind because that one of the SNY shows that I go on, Baseball Night in New York, they love to make fun of me because I'll every now and then I'll go to Central Park and check out some birds
Nice.
and take a picture or two of them. I love
Uh-oh.
seeing a hawk,
You,
a red-tailed hawk in the wild.
you're getting into trouble. So Christy says, favorite former New York Daily News teammate. Do you have an answer?
Oh boy, this is potential. This
This
is a
is how you
potential
get into
war
trouble.
right here. But but I mean, obviously the answer is Christie. I mean, it's not. I don't think it's close. You
That's
know.
reasonable. It's a good answer. So if you check it out, Corona Bird Feud 2020, just check out all the pictures. Start posting. If you have bird pictures, get involved. We're having a lot of fun.
Oh, all right. I like it.
Yeah.
That sounds good. I haven't taken any recently, but I will. I've got some saved. I chronicled the Mandarin Duck in Central Park a little
Wow.
bit. Yeah, which was a lot of fun.
We got fans there. So check out Christy's page and ours and just jump in. Just have your daughter hashtag Corona 2020 Bird Feud or Corona
Yeah,
Bird
she will
Feud 2020.
take me by the hand to lead me there.
All right. Sounds good. Anthony McCarron. So this was the name of the show is Assorted Nonsense with Anthony. Thank you so much for joining us. To everybody that's watching, we're recording it, so we're going to put this together and post it up on the rest of our channel so you can watch it. Thank you so much for doing this. We'll be back on Thursday for another episode, and have fun at home. It sounds like you got a good crew there.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for having me. That was great.
You got it. Take care, everybody.